You see any
but
bears?
I did, yeah, yeah, I
Like
saw a couple.
grizzly
Not
bears?
not, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, not super close to me, thankfully. There was one that I saw at night, and then I saw one on day two. I wanted to be the youngest person to finish the Rocky Mountain Slam.
It's Golden Hour Adventure Time, featuring everyday people doing extraordinary things. From the peaks of victory to the valleys of defeat, these are their stories. Now, from the back of the pack, your hosts, Justin and Robbie.
Justin, I was looking up some stuff on Instagram before we started, and I saw that there's a world record for 100 milers going on. Have you seen
Yeah,
this?
you mentioned that. That's pretty interesting. So was it last year's race or is it this year? Are they racing it?
What was that? Well,
It
so
was
it's
it.
just how many 100 milers you can get in 52 weeks.
It'd be 3 for me. I
Yeah,
think I could do 3. I've only done 2, so we'll see.
and yeah, so Ed the Jester is at 49, and I believe he still has 3 weeks to go.
Hey, so I was looking, we were talking a little bit before it started. Hurt 100, Rick, who is a previous guest on the podcast, he finished in 25:05. And Aaron Richards, I don't know if you remember him from the podcast, he finished in 31:50. So he's a 3-time, Aaron's a 3-time finisher. So congrats, guys.
Yeah, Rick put down some good time on that.
25 hours, that's insane.
Wow. Yeah. Well, today's guest will introduce this guy. I got the honor to run with him when I was in Utah back over Christmas time. We did Grander and what was the other thing we did? The Lookout,
Yeah, the Desolation Overlook.
Desolation Overlook in Utah. Our guest was recommended by another guest that, the guy I met in Wyoming. Then in Utah, somehow in the middle of nowhere in the West Desert, met up again, and not knowing the guy, but he said we should have this guy on the show. So here he is, Kaden Coleman. I almost messed it up.
You did.
I almost messed it up.
That's funny.
Well, Kaden, I'm super excited to hear your story. When we were running, I was paying attention to the snow and the ice because I didn't have my snow legs quite on me yet. Here in South Dakota, we hadn't had much snow, and the snow in Utah is always a little different than we get here in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Mm.
Our trails don't get tracked out, so we're pretty much, well, depending. Let me take that back. Depending where you're at, it's usually we're tracking out the trails. Utah and Colorado, those trails get tracked out in the first 2 hours of the morning, so it's a good thing, and I enjoyed it. It was a little slushy on the way back down from Grander. I wasn't ready for the slipping and sliding, but
Yeah, it was a little rough that day.
How many times you fall that day?
I felt like more times on that day than I did the whole rest of the year. It's probably like 6, 7 times. That was crazy. That was not an ideal day.
Yeah. Well, then we went back down. What do you guys call that? The winter route off of Grander?
Yeah, something like that. Just right off of that west face.
Yeah, and it was about knee deep, thigh deep in some places, and we were just bombing down it. And I remember Ryan went into some bushes and didn't even know how deep it was, and he was up to his waist in complete stop. And then it was a good time. We were sliding off the trail and trying not to tear
his knee is
hamstrings.
still hurting him that day.
Yeah, he sent me a message, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Fun though.
So yeah, it was fun. So Kaden, how'd you get into ultra running?
That's a good question. So when I came to Utah, I got into firefighting pretty quickly. I came into Utah with the intent of studying engineering and kind of having this normal college life, and I got bored of that pretty quick and ended up on a wildland firefighting crew. And I'm originally from the East Coast, so we don't deal with a lot of wildfires out there. And I thought I was going to be on, one of those TV shows like Fire Station, and little did I know I was out in the mountains fighting fires. So through that process, just met other dudes that were pushing it. I met this one specific guy named Daniel Lamthach, and was training for a marathon, and he was the only other one that could kind of keep up with me on the hikes and everything. And he said, you should come try out some 100-milers, some adventure runs. And I was like, man, that sounds stupid. Who would do that? But yeah, we went out. The first thing we ever did was we did a bike and hike of Gobbler's Knob up kind of Mill Creek, Big Cottonwood area. And that was like one of the most fun days of my life. I'll never forget that day. So ever since then, I've just been hooked and started pushing my boundaries,
So I'm guessing you ran a road marathon.
Yeah. Yep. Right around that time, I ran a road marathon, and I haven't ran another one since, pretty much. I did one other one, but it was just because my wife wanted to do it.
So many road marathons have you ran?
Just two. Just that
two?
first one, and then, just recently I did the Honolulu Marathon, and I just kind of hung out with my wife, used it as a training run, and I was running into the 7-Elevens and grabbing Masubis and stuff. Yeah, I felt kind of bad because, some people are doing the hardest thing they've ever done, and here I am jumping over cones and eating Spam Masubi. But, you gotta have fun, so.
Yeah, and what great place to go have fun and run that with your wife and get some training in. And, that's one thing that us ultra runners, tour ultra runners, I mean, we do marathons for training runs or 50Ks for training runs. And I know it's hard for some, marathoners, and I totally get it, half marathon people that have never ran that distance. But when we do it, as training runs, then you go back and like you wanted to run this with your wife. You're like, I'm sure you're thinking like, how am I going to keep this fun? Like,
yeah,
I'll go get some food for us and enjoy my time.
Yeah, I passed out a couple popsicles too. I tried to keep the vibes high for everybody around us.
So you went marathon, and what was your first trail distance you did?
The first trail distance I did was 50K. I did Behind the Rocks down in Moab, one of the Mad Moose races. And that was a wake-up call for sure.
I used to volunteer at that one a lot. I was always just at the finish line, but I got to go play on some of the course, and it's flattish, a lot of dirt and sand and sandstone rocks, but I was always surprised how fast people run that course, especially the 50-mile. I mean, people throw down some crazy times on that. So what did you do after 50K?
After that, I took a pretty traditional step up into the 100 distance. So I did a 50-miler. I did the second year of DC Peaks 50, kind of up in Ogden. And that was it was the second year they did it, but the first year that there were finishers, because I don't know if you guys know the story, but the first year it got snowed out and they had to do a couple of rescues off the mountain. So then after that, I did Canyons 100K, kind of preparing myself for the Crazy Mountain 100, which was my first 100-mile.
What year did you do Crazy?
That would have been 2023.
Oh, okay, so this second year. Robbie and I was out there. Was it 20? Yeah, 22. We were out there.
22, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? We
were out there for the first year of it, pacing a buddy of ours.
I got to pace the last 6 miles, the best miles of double course.
Yeah. Yeah, that you're gatekeeping the course if you're telling people that.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what the rest of the course looks like, but I could tell them that was the best part.
Yeah, that's a cool race. That for sure is up there in my list of favorites. I'm planning on going back this year, but I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Did you already register?
Yeah. Yep.
What time did you wake up to register for that?
Did it already go lottery? Or did it go super, does it go super fast now?
Yeah.
It went lottery.
It didn't go lottery this year. It just sold out. I think, I want to say it was an hour or so. It was really quick. But yeah, it was the quickest of all, 3-4 years that it's been out now. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a lottery next year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought it went lottery this year, but guess not.
Yeah.
A lot of those races are breaking the internet. Javelina opened up on the 1st and it broke the internet. I signed up for Kettle Moraine and it broke the internet. Or I wouldn't say it broke the internet. It broke Ultra Sign Up. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Everything's like bogged down. So it's crazy. All these like websites that you have to get on like the minute and hit the button or they sell
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, it was funny because I had a group of like 6 friends here that all wanted to go up and do it, and 4 of them got in. 2 of them just totally underestimated how quickly it goes, you know. But yeah,
They said
crazy.
that the Kettle Moraine sold out in like 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah, it's nuts
300
how quick it
spots sold
goes.
out in like 30 seconds. That's so dumb.
It seems like everything's doing that these days,
Yeah, you got to
though.
go lottery. At least popular ones, you're gonna have to go lottery.
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy to think that, like if it sold out in that quick, like that means Ultra Sign Up had just hypothetically 500 people hitting go.
Yeah, because
yeah,
there's a 100 miler, 100 mile relay, 100K, and I think a 38 miler. But 38 miler didn't sell out right away. I think it's still available as a matter of fact. But the other 3 or 4 sold out they were all sold out within a minute. And so that's 300 people that signed up just for the 100 miler. The other, the 100K and the 100 mile relay, like those sold out just as fast.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes me wonder what happens to like the last people to get accepted. Like if there is a competition for the spaces, does
well,
everyone
I
get
think
through? Do people get blocked off?
Ultra signups like servers broke, and
Yeah.
so they like I waited in the little where you got to like finish your like you've already gone through the registration, but you've hit like the button to finish it or something like that, confirm it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you have to type in like which one is a cat, and you have to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
the sidewalks. Like that reset like 3 times or something on me, and finally, only way I knew I got in is because I got a notification that my credit card had been charged. So that was the only way I knew I got in. But
Yeah.
apparently on the internet, a
You're like,
lot of
well, I'm
people
in
were getting
now.
kicked out and then they lost their registration. I was like,
Dang.
man, I'd be furious if that happened.
How long until Ultra sign up turns into Ticketmaster?
Well, I
For
think
people,
these races like that are just going to go to lottery because they on the Kettle Moraine Facebook page, they already said next year we're just going to do lottery and not worry about it. So because apparently what happened, the same thing happened last year and they didn't go lottery, and a lot of people were upset this year that they didn't even get in. So I don't know. It's going to be a matter of fact. Some of these big popular races are just going to go lottery and be done with.
Yeah. Yeah, for
like,
sure.
the San Juan Solstice always sells out. The 50 miler sells out really quick. It was like one of those ones when I first started running that, if you want to get in San Juan Solstice, wake up early to register
Yeah,
for
be
it.
ready.
And
It is kind of fun to get up and like play the game, like you're ready to go. You just hit purchase like right then.
Yeah, be the first
So-
one in the group chat to send the confirmation
Yeah,
screenshot.
it is kind of a game. It's an ultra in itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
Then you go out and get your run in or go back to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel accomplished for the day. I've done something.
Yeah, let the remorse set in later.
So, Kaden, you did some pretty cool things last year. Why don't you start us off with what your first race was of 2023? Or yeah, is that right? No, 2024.
2024. Yep.
2024. I'm a little off here.
No, yeah, you're good. So my first race was actually a snowshoe race put on by the same guy that does I guess it's called Snow Peaks 50 now, formerly known as the Squaw Peak 50. So kind of my thought process was for my ultimate goal of the summer, I was going to do a series of 4 winter races to kind of prep myself for like just to get out and be motivated to get out in the snow and the cold. So I did the Bigfoot snowshoe race. I think it was like a K or something like that. Just for fun, pushed it really hard. I'll probably never do another snowshoe race again. It was
Were
just
you
brutal.
bloody and cut up after?
No, it just like I had used snowshoes before, but I'd never like tried to run in snowshoes before. And I got those ones that are kind of shaped like shoes. And so I was like, I think I laid down a couple 8-minute miles, and
my gosh.
yeah, so it just tore up my legs in ways that I've never felt before.
I've seen some people that, that they have those running style snowshoes, the ones you were talking about. But I've seen some
Yeah.
people that have raced in those and they get pretty cut up by the snowshoe hitting their
Well,
quads
it's crazy
and
too.
legs.
Like realistically, like any deep powdery snow, like those aren't going to do anything anyways. You kind of have to be on more packed snow anyways. So yeah, but I mean, it was a fun time. It was a cool experience. I don't know how long that race will be around, so it was cool to be part of it.
Then what was your next one for the 4?
Yeah. So after that, I did 2 different Rufa races, which is a local like race series. They have a couple events outside of Utah, but I did the Grandeur Peak 12-hour Rufa, and then I did the Malin's Peak 24-hour with a team of 4. So, and both of those were awesome. Grandeur, I ended up placing 3rd place. I was 7 laps of Grandeur within the 12 hours. And
How much feet of gain was that?
I want to say it was around 18,000.
How many
12
miles?
hours.
Yeah. Miles somewhere in the fees, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think to this day, that's probably like, in terms of like fitness, speed, kind of like placement, all of the above, that's probably the best race I've ever had. Just executing it and like showing up fit, ready to just push it, is definitely by far the best race I've ever had.
Then you said you did the other one with a team. How did that one go?
That one was a blast. I don't even remember. We pushed over 100 miles as a crew of 4. I had 3 friends that were up in Ogden, which is kind of close to where the Malin's Peak is at. I guess it is in Ogden. And it was just fun because you get such a long break in between, like, while the other 3 runners go. So every lap is just like almost like starting fresh, just being able to push it. And you got more tired and more fatigued, but like the stoke level just kind of stayed high the whole time. And the other 3 dudes were fit dudes, so we just kind of came and, we wanted to see what we could do as a team, and ended up crushing like 101 miles or over 100. It was a really cool race.
What was the mileage on that one and the gain?
Cumulative, it was I think 101, and then yeah, I don't know, probably close to between like 35-40,000 feet of vert. Yeah.
And on each lap, how far did you run and how much gain did you get?
Oh, I'm gonna butcher this, but one lap of both Malin's and Grandeurs, like all of the Rufa races, one lap is pretty much like 6 to 8 miles, and like 25 to 3,000 feet of gain per lap. So
I know they
yeah,
have the Rufas in Colorado. I never went to one, but when I did Grandeur with you, that was the first time I ever done Grandeur. Growing up in Utah, I just never did it for some reason.
Mhm.
But I did Olympus a couple times in the snow, and it was like an ice chute on the way back down.
Yeah,
Like it's so steep. We had our spikes on, but
Mhm.
even with sharp spikes, and you were still just
just
kind of sliding. So I sat on my butt and like
Mm.
just slid down, had a good old time. I know that Grandeur course probably gets kind of like that with all the traffic going up. Did it ice over and get all crappy on you guys?
No, this year it was pretty stormy, like especially the first night, like the guys that were running the 24-hour had to deal with a lot of snow. And then conditions were pretty favorable in the morning, and then kind of as it got towards the end, it started storming again. So it was almost like we had fresh snow like throughout most of the race. So yeah, conditions were relatively good last year. The first year I did it, it ended up just turning into kind of that mushy slush that you and I had when we went up Grandeur the other day.
No, that was that makes for
Yeah.
a long 12 hours.
I feel like typically it ends up being like that, but every once in a while you get like a good cold year where it stays firm or something that you can kind of dig spikes into a little bit.
So you did those 4 races. What was the goal for the summer of last year?
Yeah, so the overall goal was the Rocky Mountain Slam, and that's kind of why I included those longer Rufa races also, just to get that vert. And obviously the Rocky Mountain Slam is a pretty daunting task, especially when you consider how much vert you have to do with any combination of races that you can put together. So yeah, that was the ultimate goal. I wanted to be the youngest person to finish the Rocky Mountain Slam.
We'll leave that up for the story after. What
Yeah.
made you want to? What made you want to sign up for the slam?
Honestly, like I I was really kind of struggling. Like I really wanted to do more races, get more involved this year than the previous years, especially at the 100-mile distance. And when I considered like what kind of races or where I wanted to race, it was like inevitable, like Crazy Mountain was the most fun I've ever had at a race. And I kind of identified the reasons of that were just it being so like backcountry, so rugged, and then just the grassroots communities that surrounded it made such great friendships, such great experiences for me. And so I found out about the Rocky Mountain Slam and I was like, dang, like there's 8 different races that you can choose from, and they're all like they all meet that criteria of grassroots, traditional American style ultra running where you're showing up to these rugged mountains in different areas. And it seemed like just a really fun way to spend a summer adventuring around and challenging myself.
So with the slam, you have to finish with the Bear 100.
Mm-hmm.
How did you choose the other 7 races? Well, how did you pick from the other 7 to choose your other 3?
Yeah, so part of it was lottery based because you have included in the race list, you have Wasatch, Leadville, Hard Rock, and what other one has a lottery? I guess that's it for the lotteries. But I didn't get into any of those 3 lotteries. So my options that I was left with was Uray, Scout Mountain, Bighorn, and then obviously finishing with the Bear. So I didn't get into any of the lotteries, played with the idea of doing like a Scout Bighorn double, but I didn't feel right. Just with Hard Rock being one of the original races, I wanted to do something out in Colorado, especially like if I could do Uray. It is like the closest mimic to Hard Rock that you could find out of that list.
I think it's a lot harder than than
Yeah.
Hard Rock.
Yeah, but I got a couple of screws loose, I think that
Yeah.
excited me a little
Yeah.
bit. And it's like, if anyone's going to say like, oh, it's not an original slam, it's like, okay, well, maybe it was a little harder, or maybe,
Yeah.
it's like, how are you going to question it if I got Uray done, and Uray ended up being probably like one of the highlights of the whole experience.
So which ones did you pick? Uray and the course the Bear. Then what was the other 2?
Yeah, so the other 2 were Scout Mountain and Wyoming Range 100.
So which ones? So I've ran Scout Mountain. That's usually like the last weekend of May, June-ish. When is the Wyoming 100?
It was like 3 weeks after Uray or 2 weeks after Uray, like in August.
Okay. So you started with Scout.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what was you decided to go for the slam, you picked them out. What was your thought process of training and recovering throughout this whole endeavor?
Yeah, so like I kind of explained the winter build with those races, like the main purpose was kind of building up that vert, getting my legs nice and strong, ready for the summer. As things kind of started to thaw out, I started to introduce more like flat running into my training because I was just hammering repeats on mountains like Grandeur and Squaw Peak down in Provo. But so I started adding more. I ended up doing the Bonneville Backyard Ultra. And like my only goal was just to hit 50 miles comfortably, get a nice long training day in with my friends. And then the next week or 2 weeks after, I did the Tillamook Burn 50. And it was kind of the similar goal, like just run a strong 50, work on that like back-to-back, like racing on tired legs, seeing how that turnaround was. And I built kind of my mileage, everything all the way up through Scout. Like I almost use Scout as more training, if that makes sense. And then after Scout, in between each race, it was just survival, like as much recovery as I could. Yeah, I would still get out and like I tie a lot of like mental health benefits to my running, I guess. And so I'd kind of get stir crazy if I stayed in too long, but I definitely wasn't pushing things the way that I was prior to Scout in between each race. The other half of it too is I work as a firefighter, and so kind of in between the races was like financially recovering also and working lots of like overtime and everything to get ready for the next race or recover from the other one. So I spent a lot of time working and taking advantage of different resources that I had at work. We've got saunas at all of our fire stations, ice bath, just taking advantage of that time that I did have while I was working all these overtime hours to just find as much recovery as I possibly could.
that's pretty cool. Using Scout as a training ground, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of time, I know a lot of us, our minds will go different, and it's like, well, I better taper for Scout,
Mm-hmm.
but Scout's just the beginning of 4.
Yeah, and there was a big enough break between Scout and Uray, and obviously like knowing that Uray was like potentially going to be the crux of the whole experience, it was like, okay, like I'll keep my taper minimal, like can just try to race a strong, consistent 100, and then after that, like that's where we'll recover, taper, and really be ready for Uray, you know?
And for
So
somebody who hasn't like done multiple hundreds that may be listening to this, like we're talking about doing 400s in a year, but these aren't like flat, fast hundreds. And so you're not hammering 7-minute miles for 100 miles. Like you're
Yeah.
hiking 30, probably 40-minute miles up these mountains at times. And so like the recovery happens a lot faster because
Mhm.
of the somewhat slower pace when you're hiking up, running down. But yeah, for someone who's listening, who just doesn't understand, like, how you running 400s, and it's like, yeah, I get it. It is a huge task. I'm not downplaying it at all.
Mhm.
But the recovery from a mountain 100 as opposed to like a flat, fast 100, I think it happens a lot faster.
Yeah.
I mean, those
Yeah, for sure.
races, like you're saying, Justin, almost have built-in recovery, right?
Yeah, you're
Especially,
forcing
I'm
yourself.
imagine with Uray, right? Because I imagine, well, when we get to it, I'm sure you hiked a lot of that. I've ran Scout. You could run the whole Scout course if you wanted to, pretty hard. But, Uray, elevation, all that gain. I'm sure it forced you to, do something different. How did Scout go?
The Scout went good. I felt pretty good most of the time. Especially starting like the first 50 miles, like I felt pretty like in control of my race. It was really hot, and I don't know if all the listeners know about Scout Mountain, but it starts at noon. And so you kind of have, if you don't put together like a quicker race, like in that 24-hour, sub 24-hour range, you're dealing with 2 hot days. And I think the big kicker was I kind of let go of my hydration a little bit and felt like I was playing catch up. And I was like, okay, I've been here before. I just got to get to the night and then, like stay calm. Like we'll kind of handle everything, play that catch up game a little bit throughout the night and then finish strong in the morning. And the heat didn't let up. Like you kind of you drop enough elevation and you're exposed enough at night to where it felt like it was like 90 degrees at night still. And so, yeah, it just made for a long, like very like nauseous nighttime. But yeah, we just held it together. I had a lot of really good friends and good support that were with me throughout that race. So yeah, we pulled together a decent finish still.
Knocked out Scout. Then how long did you have to train, recover for the next one?
I want to say it was like 7 weeks, if I remember. And so what I did is I came back and I worked for a few weeks. I picked up a lot of overtime, and then I kind of banked like a lot of my vacation time tagged with like shift trades to take pretty much the whole month of July off. So for about like 3 weeks before Uray, I was just living out of my truck in Silverton, Uray, kind of bouncing around. I went out with a friend originally and we were kind of doing some like rock climbing, like less running activities. And then we ticked off a couple alpine projects to like really get used to that elevation and a couple more long days before Uray, just so I didn't let all that fitness go within the 7 weeks.
So going into Uray, how did you feel when you're on the starting line, recovery-wise from Scout?
From Scout, I felt pretty good. I was definitely super nervous. I had a little bit of a cold going into Uray. Like I woke up feeling pretty lousy, which wasn't the best feeling ever, like staring down a big beast like that. But my mind was in it. Like I was committed. I wanted to get it done. And at that point, I wasn't even really thinking about finishing the slam. It was just like, all right, my pride, like I want to get Uray done. I think this is gonna be this awesome adventure. So yeah, coming out of Scout, like I felt ready. I felt strong. But yeah, it was still super intimidating. Like that's more than anything I've ever done ever. So
Run us through Uray, where we haven't had anyone from Uray that's ran Uray. Justin's always talking about it.
I know I want to do it so bad. I just want to do it because the buckle looks sweet.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I've
like the
got the
coolest
buckle.
buckle. It's like the
Dude, I've
coolest
got the
one.
buckle. I use that one probably more than anything at the rodeos. And
You get to put some of
yeah,
those cowboys to shame with that buckle.
but yeah, no, for sure.
It's a big one too, right? The buckle's big, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. But yeah, no, Uray, the best way that I've found to like describe it is what somebody told me before the race that had ran it. It was actually Tara Warren. She's another local runner here in Utah. But I was asking her because I was like, hey, like you had this insane race out there. And she said, it's not really like your usual 100-miler. Like it's more of an expedition. And honestly, it kind of felt that way. It was long. It was gnarly. It had like literally everything you could imagine. It had heat. It had all the big mountains. It had rainstorms, hailstorms, lightning going up and down 12, 13,000 foot ridge lines. Like it was pretty gnarly, but it was a really good time. It's got, I'm butchering all my numbers today, but I think like 7 or 8, maybe more out and backs throughout the whole race. Like if you've ever seen the race map, it kind of looks like a spider web
Yeah.
or a bunch of like fingers on a centipede or something like that. So it takes you way out into the mountains, up and down all these out and backs. And it's really cool because as the race progresses, like obviously in every single race, you're going to have people that go out way too hard and die off. You'll have the people that are in control and leading, people that are kind of building throughout the race, but throughout the whole entire race, you're seeing all of that happen. And it creates this really cool like support group because each time you go up and out and back, you're seeing like, hey, who's still in the fight? Like who's doing hot, who's not doing hot? Like, and got to a point where, the lead pack are telling me like, hey, you're crushing it, man. Like you're going to catch me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like you're crushing it. But it's humbling too, because at the same time, you see these guys that are so strong and literally winning the race, and they look like they're in just as much pain as I am. And, you hit an aid station where you're feeling nauseous, and it's like, oh, hey, there's the dude in third place. He just threw up behind that truck. Like, you know? So it was a really cool support system, and it really did just have like a little bit of everything. Like the amount of ground you cover, the mountains that you see, the beauty of the mountains, it's unreal.
It's got like what 40,000 something feet of change,
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
Hard Rock.
I think some maps say like up to 44. Mine shot me at like 41, I think.
It's
Yeah.
like 81,000 feet of change
Yeah.
or 82,000.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
long
No,
did
it's gnarly.
How long did it take you?
It took me 40 hours.
40 hours.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty happy with it, honestly. And I think I probably could have dropped it a little quicker. Like maybe someday I'll go back and try to run it quicker. But it got to a point where it was like, I was kind of eyeballing that sub 40 mark. And I was like, you know what? Like I could push it, or I could take this whole last downhill off of the bridge to heaven and just, encourage all of my friends that I've made throughout this whole race, like, cause there's a lot of power from those, like, 2-minute stop and check on each other as you're going past each other on the trail,
Yeah.
especially after like towards the end of the race, like when everybody's on their last climb and you're coming down. Maybe not everybody has that mentality, but I just want to fill people with power, and give them whatever I've got to help them get through it too.
How big were some of the climbs on that one? Like, what are we talking? 4,000 per climb, or even bigger?
Yeah, up to probably about 4,000. Like the smaller ones, like the smallest one I think is 1,600.
And that how many
But
miles is the climb?
like each climb or the small one?
Well, I'm just trying to get just give the listeners kind of an idea. Like the 1,500 foot climbs, are those like 3-4 miles, and then the
Yeah.
4,000's like 8-10 miles kind of thing, or okay.
Yep. Yeah, so the shorter ones definitely come with shorter mileage. Like everything is steep. Like the gradient of the whole course, like everything's super steep. So the more vert you're getting, typically the more miles. Like a 4,000 foot climb from like the valley up to the ridge and then back down is probably like 8 miles, like an 8-9 mile section. But yeah, it's crazy because it's literally it's 14 peaks, like 13, 14 peaks. Like you just have to keep that mentality of, like this isn't your usual 100 miler. Like I'm summiting like 14 different mountains, or 13,
Yeah,
whatever the
you're right.
number
It
is.
is. It's more of an adventure run than anything. Because I mean, your standard hundred's not going to have. I mean, that's a double hundred basically. That's what the 200s have is 40,000 feet. And
Yeah.
your time cut off. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like 55 hours is the
Yeah.
cutoff time for that. It's like something like crazy. I mean, you're going to need it. For someone who is more mid to back of the pack, you're going to need it. But that's almost double what you would get in some hundreds as well. So it's
Yeah. No,
definitely
for
not
sure.
your standard, and that's why I want to do it because it just intrigues me. It's just like it's something that's
Yeah.
like it's not your standard thing. It scares me. That's and that's why I want to do it. It's like you got to do things that scare you a little bit.
And that's the crazy part too, is like even me like telling you guys about it, like until you've done it, like people just won't understand. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like I don't mean to like sound rude or anything. It's just kind of how it is.
I
We
totally
we
But
get
do,
it.
on the flip side, like you meet these people that have done it, and it's like you've got this for life bond. Like I've had friends from the race that came out to Utah post race that I maybe talked to cumulative 10 minutes throughout that whole race, but we went for like a 10 mile run talking like we've known each other for 40 years.
Trauma bonded.
Yeah, something like that for sure.
and the fact is you still had 2 more races to go after that. Was that ever in the
Yeah.
back of your head?
It definitely was. It's after every single race, after Scout, I told everyone, like, hey, I'm done with the slam. I'm not going to do it. I'm still going to do Uray, but then that's going to be it. And then after Uray was hard because it was like, well, I have half of this goal accomplished now and arguably the harder half. And it's like, well, do I go just throw down at Wyoming and just hold through it, because the turnaround from Uray to Wyoming was super short. So that's the one that scared me the most. I knew if I could get to the Bear, I would get it done, just with that being a local race and having all my friends there. But yeah, that thought lingered in my head for sure, but you can't think about it too much during the race. You just have to finish the one that you're in.
So you decided to do Wyoming.
Yeah, I missed the deadline because the race director will give you a full refund at Wyoming Range if you pull out by a certain deadline. So I missed the deadline, but I didn't fully make the decision to race it until like maybe 3 nights before. I was really struggling with wanting to continue with Wyoming Range.
Well, how come?
Part of it was the fatigue. Like I had reached a new level of fatigue that I had never felt before, and it wasn't even particularly like in my muscles and everything. It's just everything felt worn down. Like I didn't have motivation to go out and run. Like I was kind of getting beat working overtime at work, and yeah, I was tired. But I think what ultimately made the decision to do it was just that fear of like, thinking the rest of my life I got halfway through something like that and then decided to not see it through or at least try. So yeah, I made the decision, like I'm going to go and give it my all and we'll see what happens.
So take us through Wyoming. Tell us about that race. I've looked a little bit into it. It's a lesser known race. It sounds pretty badass. It sounds pretty brutal too. But take us
Yeah.
through some of the description of that race.
So I mentioned before, I thought Uray was going to be the crux of the whole thing, and I was horribly wrong. Wyoming Range was arguably harder than Uray.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because I had done it right after Uray or what, but it's a brutal race, man. There's a whole lot of the races off course. You're going through mountain ranges that are less frequently traversed than maybe even some areas in the San Juans, and it's gnarly. There's bears everywhere. You have to carry bear spray. If they catch you without bear spray, they'll pull you from the race. And then the other tricky part to it was I did it unsupported, in a sense of like pacers and everything. My wife was there to crew, but I did the whole race alone, and it's a pretty small field. I think they only allowed like 60 runners that year. So it was definitely just like pure solitude the whole entire time. I don't know. Have you guys ever like done a race solo before?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can relate, but like that, it was tough for me. I guess I'm a guy that feeds off of the support because it was brutal. I
Yeah, they're
feel,
tough. I did one. I did one last year that was your crew can't even you don't have crew. They can't get to
yeah.
the race. So they see you to the start line. They see you at the finish line, and it's a loop
Mhm.
course. And so like you don't have like the aid stations are 20 miles apart. You have to carry. You literally have to carry everything you want on your back for the entire race. And so
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nuts. I felt like the cortisol, especially like during the nights, the cortisol buildup was just kind of crazy. Like I'm constantly looking forward, like looking for pink flags because there's no trail to follow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like constantly looking behind my shoulder for like bears and wildlife because I'm completely alone. And I remember there was like, it was the last aid station of the night. I got there and I just kind of like sat down in a chair for a second. My wife was like, "Are you okay?" Like, she's like, "You look like different. Like I've never seen you look like this before." And I was like, I literally feel like I just got out of like war. Like I was like, I don't think you understand. Like me being here right now, like I'm just safe for a minute, you know. Like let me just enjoy this quiet and like and get okay again to go out, I guess.
Did you see any
But
bears?
I did, yeah,
Like
yeah, I
like
saw a couple.
grizzly bears?
Not, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, not super close to me, thankfully. There was one that I saw at night, and then I saw one on day two coming up one of the final climbs. But yeah, it was crazy. And so Wyoming Range, I came in super fatigued, like 8 miles in, I was way behind where I predicted, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a long, long race. And sure enough, I ended up getting caught in thunderstorms on day two. Just took me way longer than I wanted, and yeah, it beat me up, but stuck through it and got it done, and it ended up being another one of those super rewarding races.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I can.
I could probably
I,
talk about each of these races for like an hour if you.
I bet you could. They're still probably fresh, and the trauma that came from those.
Hmm.
I've told people sometimes when during these longer races when you're by yourself, doesn't matter if it's night or day, but you come into an aid station and you haven't talked to anyone for maybe hours
Yeah.
besides yourself, then you come into an aid station and like you have to remember how to talk and all these
Like,
things
hey,
like
yeah,
you're a little baby again. And
it's like PTSD. It's weird.
yeah, I don't when you were saying that, I was like, I've never been in that place, but I've been in some weird places where I come into an aid station and I almost don't want to be there. I just want to get my stuff and go because it's just overwhelming and there's too much going on. And
Yeah.
uh, but you're kind of the opposite. You're like, oh, I'm finally at a safe place and I can sit here and not have to worry about bears and look for pink flags.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just, I couldn't imagine. Just, yeah, that's
Yeah. It was
awesome.
crazy. The second to last aid station in the race, I asked the guy, like, hey, like, is there any chance of rain? Because kind of that time the day previously, like, was when we got hit with the rainstorms. And he told me, no, like, there's not going to be a cloud in the sky. And, I'm going through these like super remote trails, like nobody around me. Like the dude in front of me is probably a couple hours in front, guy behind me is probably a couple hours behind. And I was going up and over like the second to last climb, and just this like gnarly thunderstorm comes in to the point where like lightning's cracking right above me, and I was maybe like 600 feet away from the ridge line. And I was like, oh, like I was so close, to like getting over this before. And I had to hunker down for a minute, and it just would not ease up. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna push for the finish. And I got up towards the top of the ridge. I like, hung out for like 20 minutes to make my final decision, and I decided just to go for it because I was like, I can't just hang out here. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna pass out if I stay under this tree too long. And so yeah, that was probably the closest I've ever been to breaking. It's almost embarrassing to say, but like I was like crying under this tree, like dude, what am I even doing? You know? and knowing that there still is like one more like 3,500 foot climb, and it's just, yeah, kind of gnarly.
But how many people can say that they sat under a tree and cried, wondering about their life decisions?
How many people would be proud to say that, you know?
Exactly. Like you chose this, it didn't choose you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, why am I doing this? But yeah, I'm super glad I pushed through that one, because yeah, I'll never forget being at that low point and being able to overcome that for sure.
So how long did it take you to finish the Wyoming Range?
It's 38 hours.
38
So
hours.
yeah, not far off of what it took me to do Uray.
Man. So then,
Oh, that's the other thing too. That race is sandbagged. Dennis Cook is an evil man. I think he said it was supposed to be like 20 something thousand feet, and it ended up being like 33 or 34.
My gosh.
Yeah.
You paid for
Yeah.
20 and you got 30. So you got the extra
I guess,
13.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
but
man.
definitely be wary. That race is super fun. I think I could see myself doing it again in the future, but not for a long time. It's gonna
Might
take
need
me
a
a
few
minute.
years to recover from that one.
Yeah, I'll show up and get over Wyoming Peak and just get triggered. So
How much, you got 3 down, you got one more to go with the bear. How much time did you have in between Wyoming and the bear?
I want to say it was like 6 weeks. It was another like decent break. And as soon as I finished, like even just driving home, like sore as shit, it was like I'm good now, like I made it. Like the bear is just gonna be a celebration, you know? And that's exactly what it turned out to be, because like I always wanted to run the bear. That was another reason why the slam was super appealing to me, just by the fact that you had to finish at it. And I was like, okay, this is a like renowned, like legit, awesome, fun mountain race, tons of support, tons of people, and it's local. Like it's less than a 2 hour drive away from me. So that being part of it, and then the other part is just all my friends will be there. I had friends that were running it. Every single person that crewed me in the other 3 races was there. My wife was there. My dad flew in from Hawaii with his wife. I had other friends that came that don't care at all about mountain running just to come and support me. And it was awesome. The whole race was just a celebration, like kind of sharing stories from the other races, low key, like feeling a little bit like a badass, like, like, hey, yeah, I've done 3 races harder than this one this year, but yeah, it was a really good time. I really enjoyed the bear for sure.
You had those 6 weeks. That's a little bit of time to like think about, your last race of the season and this big, journey that you're going on. How are you mentally during those 6 weeks in between the Wyoming and the bear?
It was pure rest. Like, again, like it was full of a lot of like extra work and stuff to kind of like facilitate this goal. But it was very restful, and there was a lot of stoke behind it. I really did feel like it was done after Wyoming Range, even knowing that I still had a whole nother mountain 100 to run. But it was positive, unlike the other 3 where I finished and it was like, dude, there's no way I'm gonna do this now. I was like, I don't even care if I lose all my fitness at this point. Like,
right, I'll just go
like,
walk it.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna get this one done. Like, there's no way I'm stopping. And it's reminding yourself, instead of like, hey, like I've got a 100 miler, it's like, no, I've done 300 out of 400 miles now this summer, and I'm on the home stretch,
So how did the bear go? Was it cakewalk?
It went good. It went good.
Yeah.
It was a really hot year. But the heat's like my arch nemesis. It blew me up at Scout. It kind of blew me up a little bit at the Bear. But I raced the race smart. Like I felt like I was in tune with my body. It's funny how good you can get to know your body and how it reacts to 100 milers just by doing 3 of them in a row. So it's like I'd tell my pacers or whoever I was around, like, oh, dude, this is gonna happen in about an hour. It's like, hey, at 1:24 in the morning, like I'm gonna turn into a real dick, so you better be ready for it. And like, it's just I knew everything that was gonna happen before it happened, and I just managed it. I managed the heat, and while I still think I could have ran it faster, I ended up PRing in the 100. So it was a good race. Yeah.
So you said you wanted to be the youngest to finish the Rocky Mountain Slam. So you did it, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What did you learn about yourself during this whole summer of running hundreds, some of the hardest hundreds in the United States in a summer?
I think like one of the biggest things I learned is that like sometimes I kind of adopt like a lone wolf mentality just in life, like not necessarily just with running, and experiencing these things and realizing like the effect that like the ones that are close to me have on me was kind of eye-opening to tell myself, like, hey, like sometimes I gotta accept the help or accept the love that other people are willing to give me. That was a huge lesson. Another lesson that I learned was I really value like individualism and doing things that other people aren't doing or not trying to mimic other people. I think that we have like a really strong effect on other people's lives based off of what we do, like for ourselves, for other people, like our legacies that we live or that we leave. And so it's just really cool to do something that not everyone else is doing, especially at my age, and to leave kind of a little bit of a legacy and hopefully, inspire other people to do cool stuff too.
That's
awesome, man.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what we all. Some of us think about what we're going to leave, and some people don't care about what they're going to leave. I'm one of the ones that really care about what I'm going to leave, especially for my daughter.
For sure.
Not ego-driven, but, just so she can look back and, yeah, my dad was crazy and ran crazy stuff and did crazy stuff in the hills and the mountains or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't need any more than what she thinks I'm crazy for.
And I think it's really easy, like in today's world, to get caught up in social media, even just in like the ultra running or mountain running community. Like it's easy to want to be like somebody else that we see on our tiny screens. And I think it's cool to like, mimic training philosophies and get inspired and everything, but we don't all have to do the same thing, like we can do different things. We can push different ideas. Like I no longer try to strive to be the people that I admire, but I take what they inspire me with and I try to just be myself. Like I just want to do what's inspiring and cool and fun to me. And, I think a lot about having kids in the future and having a family and, what are they going to think? Like who do they look up to? Kind of like what you're saying with your daughter. So it's just a super important point that gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah, I agree there. So with this awesome year you had last year, are you going to try to top this year, or are you just going to hang low this year?
Yeah. I mean, on paper, I'm probably going to look like I'm hanging low this year. I've got some goals. I'm definitely trying to focus a little bit on life outside of ultra running a little bit. Like I took a lot of time away from my wife and from my career to accomplish these things. And that was an awesome sacrifice from her and from everybody that's around me. So I'm pushing really hard now to kind of make some career changes and to further my progression within my career. But that being said, like I definitely am still pushing my boundaries. I want to try some new things in fitness, some firefighter competitions, and then I'm not letting go of the mountain running either. In the back of my mind, I have hard rock and a fast hard rock in my head for the future. I know that it's going to take a while to get there. So I'm going to still be running. I'm still enjoying the mountains. Like I said, that's my mental break. So this year I'm planning on running Crazy Mountain 100. I'm going to do Twisted Forks 68K in June. If everything goes to plan, it's kind of like a tune-up for that. I'd love to race it fast, both races, try to put together a PR and potentially do well at Crazy Mountain. Just kind of depends how life plays out and see how things go. But yeah, definitely have more goals, and I plan on topping the slam somehow. But yeah, maybe not in the way that everybody would expect it or want to see it, you know?
It's cool. Your own
Yeah.
little slam way.
Yeah. I want to do me, you know? I want to
Yeah.
do what's inspiring to me and keep it going.
All right. Well, I'm gonna fire off some quick fire questions, and I'm gonna base them all around the slam. So, the answer's got to come from the slam.
Yeah, let's go.
Go to real food during the slam.
Pizza.
Love it. Pizza.
The hesitation.
Yeah. Pizza saved my life in all 4 of them.
Cold, or was it cold and hot, or just cold?
Yeah, probably just cold most of the time. But I'm cool with cold pizza, you know?
Yeah. There's nothing like, carrying cold pizza. You warm it up kind of in your pack anyways.
Yeah. Yep.
Just a little dismantled by the time you get to it. What was your go-to shoes during the slam?
Can I give you 2?
Sure.
I kind of flip-flop between the Brooks Cascadia and the Nike Zagama.
Okay. You might be the first Nike guy we've had.
Yeah.
The new version, I think it's the Nike Zagama 2, I love it. Like I'm going to be rocking that for the next year plus, I don't know, for a while.
Cascadias, I like the Cascadias as well, and I've run a lot of races in them, and I think that they are not talked about enough. Those are some phenomenal shoes, and I don't know why people like sleep on them. I mean, I guess it's the Hoka, and your foot has to work with the drop, because they do have a bit of a higher drop, but man, those people sleep on those Cascadias. Those are phenomenal shoes.
Especially for like the mountain races, because it's got that rock plate with like the prong. So yeah, great shoe.
So I'm not even going to ask this question, because I'm sure your answer is going to be Uray for the funnest race of the slam. I could be wrong. Could be all 4 or the bear.
The funnest, that's such a relative, like, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say Uray. I don't know though, because like just the vibe of the bear was just pure fun. Like I don't remember any suffering in the bear at all, but I could definitely tell you like a lot of suffering in the other 2.
So if you could transform into a dinosaur during the slam, which dinosaur would it be?
Pterodactyl.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was going to be just flash straight up.
Yeah, I mean, who even likes running? We just want to be in the mountains, you know?
Yeah.
If I could just cruise around, dude, I'd be doing double Urays in half the time.
Messing with people, swooping down.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great answer. Kaden, this has been so much fun. I'm sure we could, like you said, we could break down each race last year of the slam, hour each, go through all the highs, the lows, and all that. But, congrats on being the youngest to compete the Rocky Mountain Slam. That's super cool.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're also an awesome human being, just some of the stuff you were talking about, mental health and legacy and stuff like that. That's a lot of stuff that we forget as ultra runners or just people in general. So I'm going to give you some few seconds to shout out whoever you want to shout out. And, if you're on social media, where people can follow you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk to you guys. It's cool to get to know you the other day when we ran, and Justin to get to chat a little bit here. But yeah, I'll throw out a shout out to Ryan for kind of hooking us up and being that connection. He's always been a cool mentor to me, and yeah, it's a friendship that it's one of those ones you never would have like predicted in your life, but will last forever. So yeah, Ryan Stevenson, you're the man. Everyone that helped me during the slam, if they end up listening to this, it's too many names to list off, but you guys know who you are and forever family, and I appreciate it. I guess that's pretty much it for my shout outs. You can find me on Instagram, kaden.b.coleman, and yeah, you can follow me or not. It's all good either way. I try to do a lot of cool shit, so if you like to see cool shit, I post on my story, and that's about it.
So it could disappear.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like split boarding lately. That's kind of my new kick. So,
well, sweet.
Yeah, thanks again for real.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and telling us your last year of fun. Pretty inspirational.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys should do it this year. Not too late.
So, well, yeah, we have a goal that I'll be turning 50 and Justin will be 40.
Ooh.
So that's
How
when.
soon is that?
27.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's the year we're going to do it.
Yeah, I think if the only thing I would do differently is maybe try to figure out lotteries or charity bibs, like if there are races that you specifically know you want to do. I just kind of picked and chose what was left, but
Yeah.
if you've got like your ideal lineup, like hit that, because it can make it just even more fun looking forward to all the races.
Yeah, I've run Bighorn, so I'm going to, and he's run Scout, so we're going to flip-flop. I'm going to run Scout, and then
I'm going to run Bighorn.
Kind of support each other.
Yeah. Yep.
That'd be badass. Finish it together at the Bear.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's the plan is we're going to, finish it together, but we may run separate races. The only one I know of for sure that I'm doing is the Scout and Bear, but
yeah.
Like to go do Uray, but we'll see if that happens or not.
Yeah, you can do it.
Well, Kaden, thanks again. Justin, do you want to send us out?
I'll send us out. Hey, if you like Kaden's podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a like, leave us a follow, leave us a review. That's the most important thing. Review on the platform that you listen to. It gets Kaden's and everyone else's podcast out to more people, and we can grow this thing. Hey, we'll see you out on the trails.